Good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to this interview. This is part of a report on core optimization and traffic management. And today I have with me Paul Gowans, the Wireless and RAN Solutions Marketing Manager at Viavi Solutions, and Ronnie, the Customer Experience Assurance Solution Marketing Manager, also at Viavi Solutions. Paul, Ronnie, thanks for being with me today.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Monica, for having us.
So let's get started to give a little bit of an introduction on what Viavi Solutions is doing. You used to be JDSU. Is there any change in direction? You're doing many things, so maybe you can give us an introduction.
Yeah, sure, Monica, thanks. Many people might not even be that familiar with the Viavi brand, the Viavi Solutions brand, but really what we did was we took our Arizo product line, our Network Instruments product line, our JDSU product line, and we brought those together under one new brand image called Viavi Solutions, and we separated off from our optical components group. So it really allowed us to bring a singular focus to our enterprise customers and our service provider customers, really meeting their turn up, manage and optimize their networks and help deliver an end-to-end customer experience, integrating both our instruments solutions and our system solutions under one common platform. So I think it really is, as Viavi Solutions, we have that kind of singular focus to meet those customer challenges.
Yeah, and so you've been working on optimizing the network end-to-end, not just the core, end-to-end for a very long time. And what we are seeing is that there is a change in the way you optimize the network, both because we have LTE, so new technology, new access technologies coexisting, but also because the users do very different things with their mobile devices. They do video, they do voice, they do data. How is that changing the way we look at, we evaluate network performance and we optimize networks to provide a better experience to the subscribers?
Yes, it's made a huge difference, Monica, in the sense that if you think back a few years, we had, in essence, one application, one dominant application, and that was voice. And the network was engineered from a performance standpoint to cope with that and deliver that voice service, a high quality of experience. Now we have many different types of applications, and you've mentioned a few there: video, we have audio streaming, we still have voice, we have data downloads, etc. And the key point is that these different applications place different demands on the network performance to deliver a high quality of experience. So we to now determine what the quality of experience that's being received is, we need to know what application is the end user actually using at that time. So we will still perform network performance measurements, but we now need to also identify what is the application, and only by knowing what the application is can we then relate those measurements to a quality of experience. And ultimately, it's quality of experience that's still the critical factor, but as I say, we now need to be able to identify the application being used.
So it's a mix of quality of experience. So you are looking from the subscriber point of view, but also is at the application level. So it's a mix of the two, and that makes it much more complex to measure, correct?
It makes it absolutely much more complex to measure. And one of the key things I've just mentioned is this identification of the application being used. Now, traditionally, solutions have used deep packet inspection to do that. Look inside the packets, identify, is the person watching video? Are they sending an email, etc. Unfortunately, there are parts of the world where DPI is not allowed because of data privacy. And another reason is DPI does not work when you have encrypted sessions, because it cannot identify what the application is. So we have that challenge that we need to come out with a method that we can still identify the application being used, but do so in such a way that is compliant with data privacy and also works with encrypted sessions. And that's not easy.
Yeah, because the issue is that in order to respect the privacy regulation, you need to preserve that. So you need to just get the information you need, but not more than you need. And with DPI, that's potential issue, right?
That's right. Yeah, those countries that have strict data privacy laws, they do not allow you to look inside the packets. They equate that to almost being like your physical mail letter, that you're not allowed to open the letter, look inside, see what you've written. And so they equate that to the, the sense of the packets. You cannot look inside them. So you have to, in some other way, identify what the application is that's being used.
Perfect. So you can identify that without having to get to the content of what is being transmitted.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So the issue here is to identify. So from a subscriber point of view, you look at individuals. You can look at an individual subscriber for a QoE. But in order to identify what are the issues in the network, when there is an issue, when there is a problem, how do you identify? How do you find out where the causes are? Because that is not trivial. Because we're looking at at the end at the subscriber experience, individual subscriber. How can we then sort of take it to the network level and understand where is the problem? What is the problem?
Absolutely. And again, that situation has got much more complicated with the mobile broadband era, because as well as having all these different applications that are being used, we have now smart devices, we have content servers. So we've distributed intelligence much more across the network. So to now identify issues, you have to look in dimensions. Now, what do I mean by dimension? I mean, what's the device that's being used? What's the application that's being used? Where's the location? And you need to be able to then analyze quality of experience by these dimensions, because it could be it's a fault that's only affecting a particular device. It might only be a device that recently has had an operating system upgrade and suddenly is causing lots of issues. So you need that ability to not only measure the quality of experience, but also analyze that quality of experience by dimension and be able to do that in real time. Because again, a lot of our traditional solutions could give you that dimensional analysis, but only provide it in historical reports. We need to be able to do that in real time to enable us to quickly identify issues, prioritize those issues, and ultimately resolve those issues.
Mm-hmm.
Much, much more complex than used to be the case.
Exactly. So we have application level from the subscriber point of view in real time, and that's complex. Now, to add to that complexity, we also know that the way we use mobile networks is highly uneven. Because we are uneven as human beings, we tend to congregate all in the same place at the same time, and that's sort of unfortunate from a mobile point of view, because there is much more pressure in different parts of the network at different times of the day. So how do we deal with that? Because there is a highly uneven distribution in terms of usage, in terms of time, place, type of applications. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, Monica, it's absolutely right. I mean, the extreme non-uniformity in mobile networks is a key challenge for customers. As you mentioned, there's 4 components to that. There's time, there's application, there's subscriber, and there's location. So just looking at each of those, even from a time perspective, we've looked at, for example, utilization variation at a cell site, and even in just like a 15-minute period, you can see a 30% difference in utilization. That's a massive difference and a stress on the network. Couple that with application usage. There may be specific areas where there's a lot of download to video. There might be specific areas where there's a lot more voice. Maybe some areas there's more BitTorrent going on. Maybe some areas there's more upload to applications. So, and that application can change at the different times of day. Then you add in the subscriber usage. So we've looked at, for example, analysis around subscriber and also location. And at one of the operators, we analysed the data. We found that 50% of the data was being consumed by 1% of the users. Now, you might think, okay, I get that. But if we add location into that, we found that 50% of the data was actually being consumed in 0.35% of locations. Right, 0.35%. That's a massive difference. And of course, that can ebb and flow over the time period that we talked about. So as a challenge for operators, as they try and kind of optimize the network for the best QoE to a customer, the variation and the extreme uniformity going on in the network can have a major effect on trying to do that.
Yeah, and so this is really important because you need to capture and leverage that variability to your advantage and to protect the network and to improve the experience. So you need to really have an end-to-end look at the QoE, capturing QoE and mapping it to the different elements in the network, because just knowing what QoE is doesn't really help you unless you're able to do something with that information. So how do you see that happening? What do you need? What do we need there?
Yeah, and that's a great point. So the visibility kind of end to end in the network, but then building on that visibility to actually be able to analyze, do analytics, and get to root cause of things. If you think about, let's take VoLTE as an example. Voice over LTE. That's a service that is handset to handset, typically end to end, and touches many parts of the network, requiring particular barriers to be set up right the way through the network. Now, those barriers go from handset, they go through the RAN, they hit the backhaul, and they get to the core from a signaling and a user plane perspective. So really, you need to be able to get a visible view end-to-end right the way through all those components. And to your point, build on the kind of analysis. So, okay, it's already on visibility, but tell me, for example, what the voice quality is in different parts of the network so that I can determine what part of the network has an effect on the QoE. So getting that kind of end-to-end view becomes a kind of fundamental. Of course, that's not just for VoLTE, but it's a good example. It could be for kind of any service that you're delivering. It could be for video, for example, right? Video streaming.
Yeah. And as you say, voice is actually a very specific case, although the same principles apply to everything. But with voice, there is a real special challenge because the requirements are so strict, and in order to have good performance, you really need to be able to control them. Why don't we talk a little bit about what is it you guys at Viavi Solutions are doing to address these problems? We've been through the pain points of what needs to be done, but what can we do? So let's get started at looking at performance at the application level. Traditionally, mobile operators have looked at KPIs, measuring the network in an average sort of fashion, try to understand what is the high level. And we understand that's not enough. So what is that can you help them with in terms of quantifying the quality of experience?
Yes, well, let's start with that quality of experience. And as I mentioned before, one of the key things is the ability to identify what is the application being used so that you can then relate performance measurements to an actual true quality of experience. And I mentioned before that deep packet inspection was the traditional tool used to do that identification. But I also mentioned some of the issues with that. We here at Viavi, we worked with a tier 1 operator in Germany, and they were using our solution with the DPI to identify the end user application. But Germany is one of these countries where they have quite strict data privacy laws. And so they were asked to turn off the DPI in our solution, which then meant that they couldn't really do that QoE determination that we've just talked about. So we at Viavi then looked at how could we then identify, that end user application. So we've come up with an alternative method, which we have patented, where we are able to identify the application being used without using DPI. So it complies with data privacy laws, and also it works with encrypted sessions to the extent that in that German tier 1 operator, we were able to switch that functionality back on to identify the application being used. And indeed, it allows us to identify over 90% of the sessions in terms of the actual application being used. So that in itself is a great benefit to, as I say, because without that, you cannot determine what is the quality of experience that your subscribers are actually receiving.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, this is very valuable because again, the KPI, traditional KPIs are a good indicator, but they're not sufficient to really understand what the subscribers see. And before you mention all the different dimensions that we need to look at. So not only the applications, but all the different dimensions that contribute to the quality of experience. What are you doing on that front?
Right. Well, again, we've architected our assurance solutions such that they're able to do that multidimensional analysis of quality of experience or indeed network performance in real time. And as I say, that's a great step forward, because traditionally you could only get that in historical reports, perhaps produced once a week. That was a typical time frame. So now we are able to give you that multidimensional analysis in real time, so you can indeed measure quality of experience for a specific device, for a specific location, for indeed an individual over-the-top application. And also you can do combinations. It may be that the issue is one that only affects devices as they're using a particular application. So in this way, we're able to identify those issues that only affect a single dimension or perhaps a combination of dimensions. And not only are we able to give you that analysis, we then allow you to drill down only on those dimensions. So let's say that you've identified an issue and it only does affect a single device. We then allow you to drill down into the detail of that issue by only looking at results associated with that dimension, that device. Or it may be a combination, as I say, of device and application. So we've managed to significantly improve the ability to identify issues, to isolate issues, and to resolve issues far, far quicker than traditional solutions can do.
And I guess that you have a good mix of automating that process in terms of collecting the data and making them available, but then the operator still retains the ability to direct the information, the attention where it's needed, so they don't lose the control at the same time.
Absolutely. We have two main applications. One operates, from QoE almost downwards, so you focus in on the areas where poor quality of experience is been detected. Another one gives the operator complete flexibility as to where do they want to go and look. Is it a particular, dimension, location, device? They have that complete flexibility as over where to look, what KPIs to look at. So.
Now, you mentioned a real time, but different people have different concept of what real time is. Is it 1 day? Is it 1 millisecond? And it's probably in between these two. How do you see? How do we decide what time resolution do we need in order to not overtax the system?
Yeah, when we're talking about real time, we're talking about of the order of a minute. Mm-hmm. Traditional solutions, would have been 15 minutes up to an hour. So we're significantly, reduced, that, if you like, that time associated with real time. And as we move forward, we'd obviously like to get that reduced even further. And our architecture has that potential to do that.
Yeah. So we talked about, okay, so we collect all the information. So the operator has the information. They can, direct and look into whatever dimension they care. What do they do with that information? How do they move into resolving all those issues? How do you help them there?
We, as I say, as well as having the ability to do the multidimensional analysis in real time, we then allow them to drill down and drill down only on those results. So, as I say, if it's a particular device that has an issue, you exclude all of the results associated with all of the other devices. You focus only on that device. And you can drill all the way down to getting to the point where you can identify, network transactions that have caused the problem for that device, or it may even be something like a device setting. So in particular, we've simplified the troubleshooting process greatly that allows operators to, as I say, not just identify and prioritize the issues, but to diagnose them and resolve them in a fraction of the time that it traditionally takes.
Yeah. So let's say that there is a problem, there's a problem with video performance. How do we know where that one comes from? We know that there is a problem at the handset level, but how do you find the sources of the problem?
Well, I think, Monica, that's where you need that end-to-end view. So we talked about that challenge earlier on around things like kind of vaulting video as examples. And what you need to do is you need to be able to get a kind of segmented view of the network and customer experience to then help evaluate that. So, for example, from the handset level, you can have agents on the handset that can look at the RF metrics and can also do active testing. So it can actually do some active Voltaire video service quality, and that's a pretty good measure of what sort of service an end user's got. What it doesn't tell you is where the problem lies. So then you need to go into part of the network, and then if you've got metrics from the radio access network, important here, capturing that information with a customer-centric view. Right? So not just capturing performance stats, but capturing actually information relating to the events that the customer's having with the network. So you're getting a customer-centric, location-aware view of the service, and then you can kind of isolate what's going on at the RAN level. Then if you go further into the network, we've got the backhaul. Now the backhaul can often be a blind spot for operators to try and determine what's going on in there. But you can embed technology into the backhaul to look at both transport metrics, says the transport working fine, but also then delve into specific packets. So as Ronnie mentioned, you might just want to capture information on a specific stream. So let's say you've got some RTCP data that said there's a problem with voice quality. What you can then do is you can actually start to use some embedded technology and agents in your per hop backhaul to capture that packet stream and do some analysis on it. Maybe it's video or voice quality. All right. So then you move into the core of the network. Now, the core of the network, you've got, of course, both the signaling information that's going on, for example, like IMS call control, but then you've also got the user plane, as Ronnie mentioned, in terms of that dimensional analysis, because you might want to look at the network's ability to deliver those packets and deliver, for example, like an R factor score around VoLTE voice quality. So it's getting that visibility end to end from handset through to core. It's using that to provide a view and a perspective on the quality experience, and then it's allowing you to use that analysis to delve down into where the problem's occurring and hopefully proactively solve that before the customer even has to kind of phone you up with the problem.
And so this way, this allows you to also deal with the non-uniformity of usage, because you can optimize the network in different ways depending on where in the network you're providing the service.
Exactly, and the key thing about taking a customer-centric view, capturing all events for all services, for all customers all the time, that allows you to kind of model what's going on in your network so that you can make some predictions as to what's going on. You can model over a period of time what the kind of flow is of traffic and people in your network, but you can also use that data to kind of predict in a potentially real-time environment what stresses are in the network and how to deal with that. So you're absolutely right. Taking into account that non-uniformity, the multidimensional analysis, and the end-to-end perspective is really the way that then service providers can get that proper perspective for what sort of service a customer is getting.
Yeah. Well, this is so very exciting because it's a very different way to look at how networks perform and how you can extract most of it. Now let's switch and look at the future. What are the next challenges that we're facing? What is the things you're focusing on right now at Viavi for the future?
Well, the first thing I would talk about is data monetization, because one of the things that has changed in the last few years with our assurance solutions is, the information we gather traditionally was only used with the people in network operations. It was highly technical to do with, network signaling, et cetera, et cetera. Nowadays, we're gathering information on not only the customer's quality of experience, but also what's their usage in terms of applications, what devices are they using, what locations are they using. So, and that, if you think of it, is very, very useful information that the marketing departments within the operators could use both internally, perhaps to identify new services to offer to increase their revenues, or indeed to sell information outside to third-party companies around about, as I say, subscribers, where they're doing things, what applications they're using, what devices they're using, etc. So that's one of the things that we're looking at, is the application of the information that we're gathering. And as I say, gathering traditionally for network operations, but then formatting that and selecting it in such a way that it's of use to the marketing departments of operators, both, as I say, for internal purposes, but also for external sale.
Mm-hmm.
The second one I'd mention is network functions virtualization, or NFV. NFV will have a huge impact on our types of solutions that Viavi sells, because if you think of it, most of the tools that we supply, they have traditionally connected to physical network interfaces, either to monitor traffic or indeed perhaps to inject traffic if they were active testers. Well, with NFV, some of these physical interfaces will no longer exist. You'll ask, where can I interface to a particular interface? And the answer might be, well, it's inside that server. It's inside that virtual machine. There is no physical interface. So we have to evolve our solutions such that they can be used in virtual environments. They themselves have to become virtualized. They have to have the ability to interface to virtual network interfaces. So, there are huge changes for us in our, business in terms of NFV.
Mm-hmm.
And that's certainly, two of the areas that we're looking at and working on right now. And I think, Paul, you want to mention, some others as well.
Yeah, the two I'd like to touch on are SON, and we can't have a conversation about mobile networks without mentioning 5G. So just touching on 5G, but the SON side of things really reflects back to that non-uniformity discussion. So how do you self-organize? How do you self-optimize? How do you self-heal a network in this environment? And one of the things that we're doing is developing a pretty strong kind of SON strategy around customer-aware, location-aware, predictive capabilities within SON, and the full kind of actuation capabilities. So being able to kind of develop an end-to-end SON perspective, because we talked about the end-to-end stuff. SON can't just sit as an isolation in the RAN; it needs to take a kind of end-to-end approach. So we're continuing kind of to develop a SON portfolio, which is already addressing some key challenges in customers today, and that SON side of things then evolves into really kind of where 5G is going for SON, which is one of the kind of key elements. So the whole kind of end-to-end SON network slicing, as you take that kind of slice through the network for a particular service or a particular customer or a particular group of customers. How do you self-optimize, self-configure, self-heal that network? Take predictive approach so that you can do things in real time, but also taking a modeling approach so that you can model your network and reflect the flow of traffic across the networks. So that evolution into kind of network slicing and so on becomes a fundamental. And then the other two aspects, I think, of 5G that are worthwhile just bringing up. One is the ultra dense network perspective. I think the evolution of kind of het nets into ultra dense networks, provides some interesting opportunities as well as challenges for operators. And then couple that with mobile edge computing, which brings much more kind of intelligence to the edge of the network as it makes decisions at the edge, which perhaps you didn't have visibility before. So again, it's that visibility and analytics end-to-end view that will be fundamental to managing end-to-end quality of experience.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. This was a very interesting conversation on the challenges and the solutions that we face as we optimize the core and manage traffic. I would like to thank you, Paul and Ronnie, for your time and for your insight. And I just wanted to remind you, this is a conversation with Viavi Solutions, and this is part of a report by Senza Fili and in collaboration with RCR Wireless News on core optimization and traffic management. Paul and Ronnie, thanks again for being with us today.